At last, the dark races of the Mythos revealed their forces on Earth. With the Vril near, the Old Ones knew it was time to strike. Plans older than man unfolded in a single night and changed the world of dust forever. Earth is no longer a paradise, and it seems now a return to such is not to be. We are lost in destruction, madness, and war. This is Dust War Journals, and welcome to our Paradise Lost special. Yeah, this has become kind of a tradition for us now. Yes. When we get the new expansion book, what's new in this version is that we actually have the physical book with us this time, and we have not only read it, we have also played it, and we have a lot to talk about here. This is
we've played
really
a
exciting.
little bit of it, not everything.
Yes, of
right?
course. We haven't played through everything, all the scenarios and all the rules. No, but we have tasted, nibbled in the corners
our
of
toes
it.
into
Yes,
it.
Exactly.
And as you say, behind Johannes here, we still also have the other goodies from
exactly. So why not start there then?
Yes.
What do you get with this book? Well, of course, you get the book itself first off, and we should mention we did talk about this in our last regular episode, but this is a thick book. I mean, this is almost almost the same as the main rule book. So it's a lot of content here.
It could probably even stop a small bullet, but not a phaser, of course, because you can't take cover from phasers. So,
unless it's a snowstorm.
Oh yeah, well, that's another thing.
That's another thing. You get a lot of stuff in this book, of course, but let's talk a little bit about what you get besides the book itself.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so you get the book, you get some tokens, you get a fantastic little poster here with the artwork, and you also get the new updated world map on the way. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But I think the most exciting thing, talking about bonuses, is these lovely paper mats that you get, these maps. And we put them up. They are double-sided. You get this jungle pattern on one side and the beach on the other. And you get 4 of these with this book. That's really, really nice. And we're going to get more into this when we talk about the scenarios. But the way that the scenarios utilize these and combine them in different ways is very cool, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And I really like the art. And then they are, in my opinion, the most beautiful paper mats they've ever done, and I think they kind of rival even these the mouse pad quality mats. They are very beautiful, really good mats.
Definitely. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they start selling mouse pad mats with these patterns at some point.
They have to. That is just a given cert. But until then, put some that plastic that you used perhaps when you were covering books in school, when we got at least we did when we got those new books, and we got some special plastic rolls, because I found out a few years ago that they are still in sale, at least in Sweden. So I bought some of those and did them on some of the old paper mats.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. That's really nice.
Especially when you do the water thing, if you have like that plaster on top of it, it just gives that a little bit more.
Yeah, a little shimmer to it.
Shimmer, a little something. Yeah. It's a very nice thing. That's perhaps the only thing there that you want these in perhaps 2 layers then, because you wanted a little beach thing if they. But that's
so. If you want to go all in, you can just first off you do the plastic film over the whole thing. Yeah. Then you mask off the water and then you spray some dull coats like those matte varnish spray over the rest.
Yeah, why not? Perhaps, I don't know. Well, you can always. It's a lot of things you can do with these mats, and these are so cool.
And I think also that we should talk a little bit more about the tokens that you get with this, because there are some interesting stuff here.
Definitely.
And these are mostly kind of gone with the scenarios, so you get some. I think the most interesting scenario-based ones are the vodka tokens, which have pizzas on the other side, and that will make sense.
All you
when
need,
you get to
pizzas and vodka.
Yeah, exactly. Just depending on the life situation you currently.
I would say that's a normal European dust tournament. It's vodka and it's pizza and it's Well, yeah, I'm sorry, but that's where we
And
go.
you also, we can talk about some rules changes as well, because you do get these pass tokens.
Yeah.
That is a very interesting thing that they've done. And the thing, how you're supposed to use this is at the start of every turn, you count up how many activations you have. Every player does this. And then the one who has the least amount of activations gets a number of pass tokens equal to the difference to the other person.
Yeah.
So if I have 13 activations and Magnus has 10, then I get 3 pass. You get 3 pass tokens.
Yeah.
And you can use the at any point. And the interesting thing here is that you get these pass tokens for the remaining of the turn.
Yeah.
Meaning that even if you lose units, or if I lose units and the balance shifts somehow, you still have those pass tokens. There are some interesting stuff that you can do tactically with this, I think.
Definitely, and at first you feel like they say in the book text of the book that it's nothing new, but it is a small tweak there, because before, when you lost units, you could still end up being able to pass. But now, since the turn is rolling and you have your pass tokens, you can't get that situation anymore. So it's you got the pass tokens or you don't get it, no matter how much you kill off in one turn.
Yeah.
But then, of course, it starts over the next turn, so you calculate again. I like it.
Yeah, it's different. It's a bit of a shift there, and this is also where the new skill, which we saw on the Japanese general, I can't remember the name of it.
Tactician?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I can't. But
Yeah, you're so wrong. No, you're so good. Oh, no.
I can't remember the name of the hero now on the top of my head, but the skill is tactician,
Yeah.
which is makes it even more interesting.
Yeah, so you get extra pass tokens.
Or Go Fault or something like that. They're all very cleverly named. I love them. But I should, of course, remember them as well. Then it's more fun.
That could be
good.
a thing. And the other thing that also is very, I think, of personal interest to us are
definitely.
the updated smoke tokens, which have smoke. They look like the older ones, but they are double-sided. They say smoke 2 on one side and smoke 1 on the other.
Yeah.
And they are actually referred to as Dust Viking smoke tokens in the book. Because this is basically an idea that we had a few years ago, and I think people who have played us like in Poland or in other have seen us using these like MDF tokens that we made a few years ago, which works in the exact same way. And apparently the studio liked that idea.
Yeah, well, it's so great. And perhaps saying this afterwards, I wouldn't mind if they had used our logo, but perhaps that would have been a little bit too much. But we always print up new if people want them, almost.
Yes, of course.
It's very thankful, though, that they think about us that way, and they use what we do.
Pause.
Yep.
Everything's going wrong today.
Apparently, yeah. That's that type of day. Why don't you?
There we go. Alrighty. So, should we then get started with the main meat of this book then?
Meat-offs of this book, or what? No, sorry,
Exactly.
I'm just trying to...
Well, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I mean, first off, we do have, like we mentioned, the updated world map.
Yeah.
Now we're in September of 1947 now, and stuff has definitely shifted around. We've seen a lot of changes. We're not going to spoil really anything.
No.
You're going to see this soon enough, I think.
Yeah, it's so nice to sit with it and try to, without running to the other booklets and see how did the map look last time, try to spot everything. It's like, those... Also, when you were kids, my daughter loved them. You should find 5 faults in a picture. It's 2 almost similar pictures, and you should try to. So I
spot
go there
the
with it.
differences.
I sit with the map, and was that yellow? Was that blue? Was that purple? Well, no, I think they've shifted lines here. Okay, yeah, and try to pat myself on the back. When I spot everything. Or no, I didn't see that. Okay. Do your homework, Ludwig.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that I think we should talk about, but perhaps not spoil too much about, are the short stories.
Yeah.
because there's a ton of them in this book.
Definitely, loads more. Everything is more in this
Yeah,
book.
definitely.
Yeah, there's both.
Almost everything.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's lots of very nice short stories, and also a lot of more like sweeping. They are explaining all of these theaters of war, like situation report, what's happening in this part of the world, what's happening over there.
Exactly.
Which is very nice, because now for a long time it's been so focused on the Babylon area, and that's all we've seen. But now,
and we should mention that that is one of the main parts of this expansion book. It's the first big kind of expansion, if you want to call it that, for this game that is not operation something, because it's not based on a single military operation. This is a bunch of theaters across the whole world. There's stuff happening all over the place, and there's a ton of different like dynamics going on, and it's very interesting to see how they just shake everything up.
and that's so logical also, because beforehand it was just at one place something were happening, or well, because they already had done the Sparrow Ground thing, but of course they were brewing and other stuff. But then we needed to focus on what was triggering in Babylon and that area. But now, since all hell has broken loose apparently everywhere, we have to, of course, look in a little bit over there, a little bit over there, over here, and even way over there. We need to check it out and see what's happening in different places.
Definitely.
And it gets so great. I'm sorry, now I'm skipping. I'm going for the scenarios. Backtracking. Please keep going, Johannes.
Well, I think maybe it's time to start talking about the scenarios. You get kind of a big bit at the start that kind of explains the situation of the world, what's going on in different places, like a short overview. Then you get into the special rules for all the scenarios in this book, because there's a ton of special rules. A few of them are general for all of the scenarios, and I think the big one here is one that we've kind of heard rumblings about for a long time. It's Fog of War.
Yeah.
And me and Magnus just tried this out in a short game that was really, really interesting. And just basically, shortly, you don't know what's coming at you. You have some idea that things are moving, but you don't know exactly what unit it is. And it's a very simple system, but it definitely shakes up the dynamic.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we might just say for the ones watching on YouTube that it's the remedies of that battle that's out just in front of us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I was tucking my daughter to sleep, and you guys were having fun in the living room on my expense. No, I loved that you guys were playing while I was taking care of business, so to speak. So
and the other one that we didn't really get into here, but that's mentioned as a general rule in this, is shallow water. So that comes in when you're using these mats, or if you have water in the scenarios in any other way. And it's very, very simple. Shallow water is open terrain, so you don't get any cover or any other benefit. But what it does is that it reduces movement speed for ground vehicles or ground units moving through them by 1. So if you are moving through at least one space of water, you are reduced in 1 square with your movement. And that's something that we did yesterday when we played a different scenario, which was really interesting. We should talk a bit about that when we come to it.
Yeah, we can do that.
But it was interesting to just try that out. We didn't use the Fog of War then because we had limited time and we wanted to play the entire thing.
And also what happens when you don't have severe weather or you have normal weather like we had, and I was bringing aircrafts, then Fog of War gets nullified, so to speak.
Because, in a way, because if you do have, it has to do with line of sight to units, and if you have an aircraft, then that aircraft, as per the basic rules, have line of sight to and from everything on the battlefield, which means that if one side has an aircraft, they can automatically see everything on the other side, but not necessarily the other way around.
So it's it gets a little But that's good, because then now you really want to bring an aircraft, because you don't want to be left in the dark, so to speak, and you could really be hampered by not having an aircraft, because man, what you could trick the other one. I saw when you two guys were playing, I popped out a few times, and you really get that feeling like this could really be the big surprise is coming.
Yeah, maybe I don't know, maybe we should explain just a little bit more about how this fog of war works.
Please.
I suppose you can do it in several different ways, but the gist of it is, and as they write here in the book, is that you just use pen and paper, write like numbers on papers, and refer to them like this unit is number 5, and then you have a piece of paper with the number 5 on it. And you move that piece of paper onto the board. And until an enemy unit actually sees that, your unit, it remains a piece of paper. But when it's seen, you just flipped it and, okay, this is the unit.
Yeah.
And I love that effect, because it means basically it goes a little bit faster, at least the first few turns, I think.
Definitely.
And that's nice. And I also love the kind of bluffing possibilities that you have to like outthink your opponent. I always love that in a game where you have that, when you have the possibility to bluff, or maybe even you get bluffed and get surprised. You were so sure that it's going to be, this big walker over here, but it's over here. So
this is so. It's going to be so much new fun things for the game and for the casual playing, and hopefully I hope that some of these will actually transcend to the bigger tournaments as well, because
maybe
in a sense, most of these rules, which makes them so great, is they are so simple, so you don't have to be thinking about it for ages. You really get it explained, and okay, now I know the rule. Okay, let's roll with it. Of course, it's remembering in the beginning, but like the shallow water. Yeah, it's like just remove one movement. And you say that's not so much important, but man, does that change your stats on your units. And especially in some of these scenarios where the water is in between or somewhere else, it can really, really affect the outcome of a game. And the same thing with Fog of War, of course. So small, simple rules, I could say, but big effect, and that's
and
just
I
great.
mean, just thinking back to the game that you and I had last night, if we had used Fog of War, how nervous would you have been charging into that jungle?
Yeah, well, that was just I was nervous anyhow, because you have to realize, folks, I was playing Desert Scorpions, and I only had 10 units because I powered up on heroes a little bit. Also, I brought up airplane, so that reduced my amount of activations. And you had Endak, and Endak is like everywhere. So but it was only 13 activations. Actually.
Only 13.
So it was a nice, lovely little Endak army with the Panzer IV and the Panzermeister.
And the E10.
Yes. Those two together, boys. Man, that was just what I was dreaming about when we talked about the last episode. Going off topic, I'm sorry. I'll try to come back to it. But since it's the scenario, seeing the Panzer IV and the E-tank side by side coming through that jungle. Ooh. Okay, they blew up fairly easy that time.
Well, the E10 did. The Panzer did survive for quite a while. So.
Yeah, with his damage resilient Panzermeister and regenerative HQ behind him and stuff like that. It was just... But, of course, I shouldn't complain. No. I had so much luck.
Yeah, you did. Your dice were really mean to me.
Yeah, they were hot. Those phasers, they were really made to go. But I think also that's so... wonderful in that scenario was the thing that you shouldn't sustain fire and you shouldn't use artillery, and you couldn't help yourself trying to both sustain fire and use artillery, and they didn't work for you, and that made a huge difference, while I gambled a little bit to move around and always shoot without sustained, and that actually, I think that was perhaps one of the
it could have been, and we'll talk a little bit more about those special rules when we get to that point, because that's the kind of whole gist of this book, that there are several theaters of war, and there are 3 scenarios for each theater, and also each theater has some specific special rules in place for those scenarios. So there's a ton of stuff to kind of hold in your head while you're trying to play these. Which special scenarios are
I think
in use here?
it's 6 theaters of war, right?
Yeah, so this
With
is
3 scenarios. It's 18 scenarios all in all. That's a lot.
and there's special rules for the theaters, there's special rules per scenario, there's special rules for all the scenarios in the books, and there's also special weather rules, so you have to look in the original rule book for those. So there's a lot of stuff to remember.
But guys, before you go like, whoa, I have to learn like a whole rule book now more. The thing is that you just play one of these scenarios as a one-off, or you have a day, and I think you could easily play 3 of these scenarios, like the little mini campaign on a day, and then it's the same rules almost for everything. I mean, like the special ones. So you don't have to learn gazillions of rules because when you're playing in one scenario. And you keep playing in that theater, it's the same rules next game as well.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that that's how the scenarios are written as well. Like a mini campaign, they are linked.
Yeah,
and they kind of refer, like scenario number 2 refers to what happened in scenario 1. Basically, it's not like it's having an impact. It's not like whoever won the first will have a benefit in the second, really. But they kind of say that. Whatever you found in the first one, now you have to, take it back to the base or something like that. So
exactly.
it's kind of story-wise, they are linked together and meant to be played in a series.
So should we go through and talk about the different scenarios and the different kind of theaters then?
I would like to mention one more thing before we go, like a general thing. I think the artwork, which there's a lot of artwork in this book as well, like full pages or even like double page, and it's just fantastic. There are so many cool art pieces.
Yeah, and I really like the fact that there's so much difference in them because of the setting, that you are all over the place and you get artwork from Antarctica, from the Pacific, and like from everywhere. There's some artwork that we've seen before, like on Facebook and such. There's some completely new artwork, and there's some dioramas that are also completely new that we haven't seen before, that are just beautiful. So
Paolo, all your dioramas, they are super beautiful. We've mentioned it before, of course, and it you're taking it to another level now. But of course, if I have just mentioned one of them, and now I'm going to the artwork, the submarine in Antarctica with the base, that in a 1 by 2 meter poster on my wall. Yes, please. Okay, it's not all that dusty. It could be for any war game in roughly this era. I mean, not area, but era and area. So,
so why not?
Why not? But also, even the mythical creature poster, like 1 page or 2 page things, I would actually seriously consider having those in golden frame on my wall. It's like, they're so good. I'm really getting like a fanboy thing here, but it's just, you need to mention this. This is, well, I don't know what they're going to sell it for, but I don't really actually care. I think this must be one of the best price-valued things they have released for all the things you get from it. And I just read the first starts of the scenarios, because the short stories, because I want to wait till I get my own copy and hold it in my hands. That's when I read the short stories. But at least they tease me enough in those first sentence that I think I'm going to enjoy the rest of them.
It's interesting because normally I think it's very interesting to read about all the new units, and of course it is interesting in this book as well. But for me personally, I think like the new unit entries are the things that I get the least excited for. I get more excited about these cool short stories and maybe even more the artwork. I think it's just fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk scenarios.
Yes,
let's
please.
talk theaters. So first off in the book we have Battleground Antarctica. So we're returning finally to the origins of the game, basically. That's where the whole thing started back in the day. And now we're getting back. There's 3 basic special rules for these scenarios. So it's getting cold in here, first off. That's the first round. No unit gets more than one activation.
Yeah.
More
One
action.
action.
Yeah.
So that really puts things on the slow burner here. You can't really scout ahead. You can't really do anything really.
Yeah.
And the thing that we discussed beforehand, it doesn't really say what happens if you have, say, a unit with move and fire, or in another way to get 3 activations maybe with infantry or such. But on the other hand, it does say each unit can only do 1 action.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter how many actions you have. You can only do one.
The way it's written, it kind of looks like it's a hard limit of 1 action, meaning you can make a move onto the board, basically. That's what's happening in the first turn. So.
And the beautiful thing with the Antarctica scenarios is they are almost empty.
Yeah.
So it's like a blank mat.
Yeah.
And you look at them and you say, what's interesting about this? It's nothing on the board. And then you play them, and you get or at least, what do you say? It happens.
Well, but one thing that you should be aware of first, for most of those scenarios, not all of them, severe weather is in play.
Yeah.
And that really puts a damper on what you can do and what you can see and such. So,
that limits the view. So you can only see 6 spaces or 6 squares.
Definitely.
So it's...
Next off... and many of these special rules have some punny names. This one is Sub-Zero Climate Winds. So a little really nice Mortal Kombat reference there. This is basically if a infantry unit that's not inside a vehicle or inside a building does not do a move during their turn, there's a 1 in 3 chance that they start to freeze.
Yeah,
they get frostbite and they are suppressed. And this is even if a unit normally is immune to suppression, they are still suppressed. So things like zombies can get suppressed this way.
Yeah, their joints are freezing up. I mean, it's so
it's
thematically
really
right. It's so cool. It's everything. It's just,
And the third special rule is very simple. You cannot use mercenaries in a non-mercenary army. Because mercenaries just don't get paid enough to go to Antarctica.
Yeah, I feel that's also a nice thing, and it mixes it up. Of course, you can always do a backstory why you have 50% mercenaries if you want to play that way. But
it does say that if you are an entire mercenary force, if you're a mercenary block army, then you can use it because that's an army that is funded specifically for some reason. Yeah. So that's the kind of proviso to go there. And then, of course, you have the 3 scenarios. We shouldn't get too much into detail for this, not spoil too much, but they are different, they are interesting, and they are big. They really make a use of this. So for the first one, you have the 4 mats. For the second one, you get the 3, like we have played here. Yeah. And for the fourth one, I think there's also 4. Yeah. The fourth one is interesting in a few ways. This is the only one that has a real bits of terrain on it. And
a few.
That are referred to as mysterious pylons. Yeah. And they are also kind of hinting something that these pylons are going to be...
into the future.
Yeah, they're going to turn up again later in Operation Downfall. So I think we get some hints for what we might be talking about.
Something's coming
this
down.
Time next year.
Yeah, well... Swoosh, swoosh.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so now on to the next theater then.
Yes, please.
And just see where we get to here. I'm just looking over at Magnus' computer here. Yeah, so that's back to Babylon. Of course, we can't just leave completely. There's still stuff going on there. Yeah. And but we do have some new interesting special rules. First off, it's getting hot in here. So basically the exact opposite.
How are you feeling?
Thematically.
Hot.
So in this case, let's see. Yeah.
It's a sort of similar rule as the cold one, but the extreme heat increases the stress on all units. As a result, all rolls to remove under fire or suppress tokens they are made with one less die. Like normally just one die.
Yeah.
Maybe two, depending on if you have one of those brave units or platoons or whatever. So cold is bad, but hot is not very good either. So
I really like this one. It feels very thematic because hot climates, they just tire you out, and especially if you're fighting, then of course it's a lot harder to get back in shape. Yeah, I like that. The next one, Enter Sandman. Another interesting reference there.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Out in the desert, the sun gets everywhere, and that means that every time you execute a sustained attack, you need to roll a die first, and if you roll a shield, you have to treat it as a normal attack instead. So you're basically wasting an action possibly when you do that. So
we're going to see there's some themes kind of re-emerging throughout these, because we also see some recurring things here for the next one. Cheap mercenaries available. Things have gone on a lot. There's been a lot of action in this region, and there's a lot of possibilities to hire mercenaries. So.
And I'd just like to point out also there, when we now start to have a limitation almost on sustained fire, and which is, it's definitely would affect even more if we were still playing on only 2 mats. But since we're now playing on 3-4 mats, we have a lot more movement, and you want to move more. At least that's what I found out when you and I played, even though I'm still learning also to play Desert Scorpions, and they really are. It's important to move around with them, I think.
Yeah.
But those bigger maps really encouraged me to go running or go driving or whatever you like to call it. And I think it's gonna give you a lot of more ways to play the game now, and you don't really rely too much about hunking down and just sitting there and sustain firing like you do in some other games when you don't need to move because you're already in center at the beginning.
True, very true. Just not to go into too much detail, but basically cheap mercenaries available, the special skill, it reduces the army point cost for mercenaries in your army. But there's also...
in Antarctica, mercenaries are too expensive, so you can't really use them here. They are cheap because they are kind of, looking for work. There are a lot of mercenaries in this area, so they will be a little bit cheaper if you want to hire them.
Yeah, it's like a point per unit or something like that. Or
exactly. Up to a third of your force can be mercenaries, and each unit will be 1 point less than its normal AP cost.
Yeah. And that's really cool because in a lot of the mercenary units, it feels like they are slightly more expensive than they maybe would have been if they had been in another block. The kind of mercenary tax.
Yeah.
So this is going to be very interesting to play around with.
Except Natalia and Emma then.
Yeah.
So like for
those
4 points you get those two. Yeah, please. I'll have them for cheap. I have them for fun. I have them for nothing. I have them for...
Definitely.
Sorry.
And here we come into... these ones. So the first one is the Rivers of Babylon. So this I can't wait to try and play this. This looks awesome, absolutely awesome. So not to go into too much detail, but first off, we got those. So 4 of these just placed with a river in the middle, and I can see just building around with the buildings and palm trees and stuff. You can do some really interesting things here. The next one, Hunting the Kraken. We finally get some reference to the Kraken here, and this is very different because now you get a very, very small and short map instead, but still with the river in the middle.
It's not that small.
No, it's still
very long.
Yeah, it's
very
long but
rectangular.
narrow. Yeah, it's long
exactly.
and narrow with the river in the middle instead. But it's so.
Because now we get into these interesting where you will mix the new maps with the starter type maps. So you will have like a land area on each side of this small river and battle it out.
Mm-hmm. And finally, for Babylon, we have. Let's see what we got here.
We're getting a little silly, I must say, but it's a funny thing.
Yeah.
It's because now we go to 9 mats.
Oh yeah, the Lost Oasis. This is just immense. So it's basically you get 8 of the normal standard starter set mats with one of the jungle ones in the middle.
Yeah, because that's the Oasis.
And this is and just
It's a huge scenario, 18 by 27 squares
Normally,
or 6 by 9 feet.
And like normally we play around 100 to 120 points.
Yeah.
Recommended for this is between 250 and 350.
Yeah.
So this is an enormous, brutal match.
That's just not a problem, as everyone knows. But the thing is, finding that type of table and then moving in. I'm just thinking, when you got 9 mats. And if anyone gets into the jungle,
you have to just reach those.
Yeah, you need some kind of pole, almost like or like they have, those.
Shuffleboard kind of things.
It's
going to be interesting to try this out.
Perhaps they should have sufficed with a little smaller one on these, but okay,
maybe. So let's get to the next one, which I believe is Devil's Island. We've seen. So I think I'm not completely sure, but I think there's a few of these short stories are the same ones that we've got in the weekly newsletter. So you have heard about Devil's Island, you know what's going on there, basically. And to see what's going on, first off, it's getting wet in here. So first we have cold, then we had hot, now we have wet.
Yeah.
And this is the one that you were referring to, that this is the one we played that that kind of messed me up, because not only is it harder to fire sustained weapons, it's also harder to reload your own weapons or to fire artillery. So first off, it's getting wet in here, which means that if you want to use a reload action, you have to roll a die, and if you roll a crosshair, you don't succeed.
No.
The reload. And same basic thing with shooting artillery. If you want to shoot an artillery shell, you first off roll, is the gunpowder still dry?
Yeah.
On a crosshair, no, it wasn't.
No.
So that kind of really messes you up.
So those artillery pieces that have the reload rule, they don't bring those.
Not in the jungle.
No.
And
which is very fitting. I mean,
of course.
firing artillery in the jungle, maybe not the best idea.
Yeah. And the next one, it's raining, man. And this is the one with sustained attack. So it's very similar. If you want to do a sustained attack, you roll a die, and it's a 1 in 3 chance that you don't get to sustain attack. It's just treated as a normal attack. So you have big chances to just waste actions in the jungle, because there's just a lot of stuff going on.
I could have seen that they could have had as well, like all tanks or all walkers should have a reduced mobility on the jungle mats, because there were reasons why the Japanese didn't bring too many tanks or why they had the why they were coming with the katanas and the bayonets on the rifles when they were running around in those woods.
Right.
I mean, but that's another.
And finally, we got no money to be made here, which also is for the mercenaries. So the same kind of thing here. This is not an area that the mercenaries want to go to. It's just too much hassle, basically. So no mercenaries allowed. And
I just have to jump in a little bit with the first scenario there that we played, standing on the beach. I just say this, I think it's the perfect scenario to try out Magnus' so-called American football skills, because that's actually, you have to build a line and you can't let me into the touch zone. So and it really depends on how you formate your defense line, if you are allowing the opponent to do those. So
just the offense versus the defense.
Yeah, it's very
really
much so.
American
Who
football.
will be the quarterback?
Yeah,
and if you just look at it and read it in the book, my first kind of reaction was with, how am I going to lose this as the defender?
Yeah.
It just seems so unlikely. And then you get moving, and then you start. We both had very fast moving armies. But it still was almost nothing going on the first round.
No.
We just started positioning around, and here's where the water comes in.
Oh,
That slowed
definitely.
you down a
Yeah.
lot, just entering. But then we also noticed that all this terrain, all these trees in the way, that's wonders for the Desert Scorpion trucks with the raid rule.
Yeah.
It's
Since
so easy.
the trees don't hinder the trucks, which they should have done. I mean, those trucks shouldn't be able to go into the forest, but and Greg, of course, in a truck. A lot of people talk about Greg in big power vehicles. No. Small, effective sting operations, because he can just nibble at the opponent.
And especially if it's an opponent like me who never succeeds in reactive fire,
yeah.
more or less.
And that was, we had some nice reactive fire rolls there. But I also missed when it was very crucial.
That's true.
And Tina was coming over there and tried to nibble on Marek, and it was like, it was passion in that scene, I think. Well, Marek got the losing stick.
It was an amazing game, and I really felt like I had to fight uphill almost the entire game. I think if some roles had gone differently, it could have done something. But at the end, Greg in that truck was just he was definitely your MVP.
Definitely, he was super. It was so fun to see him maneuver. Also, to give a hint on that one, you need to stretch your line a bit. You were very compact in the middle, and that gave me chances to flank you. And so basically, with Greg and the raid rule, or with trucks and raid rules, you got a very good possibility to break up and come around. And when you haven't started the pinching maneuver, the other guy's quite fucked in that scenario. Basically, if you are defending, then you have to roll like a god or something, because
Yeah, so this is to maybe explain a little bit to our viewers out there and listeners. This is played on 4 of the new mats. You have 2 of the riverside,
so it's a beach landing.
Yeah, exactly, beach landing, and you're going into the jungle, trying to break through, try to get a foothold on this beach. Which is nice, because it's been a long time since we really saw this type of landing scenarios. If I remember correctly, the last time there was some official, I think it was in like Sealer or something, right? With the landing in England. So and I kind of miss that. This is one.
And this is really cool. It's very cinematic. It's really exciting, and it's so tense.
Cool.
Next up, we got another very interesting kind of formation of mats here. Storming the airfield, which is you do have the jungle like at the edges, but then you have a strip of the original kind of desert mats right in the middle, which is supposed to represent the airfield. So very special, kind of interesting thing, and how they combine the mats in like unusual ways. That's very, very cool.
I can see so many interesting things happening there when you like, do I dare go out on the airstrip? I see everything, but everyone sees me.
I don't know how carefully you read this scenario. I think this is going to be super fun to play. I'm really looking forward to this, because in this scenario, every infantry unit gains the airborne skill. If you want. They don't have to use it. It's an option. But you can use it on every infantry unit. But if you do, they have to land on the landing strip. Which is kind of open. So,
of course you don't want to land
in that. I mean,
no, obviously not. So either you have to like trek through the jungle, or you can land right on the landing strip. Depends on how daring you are.
That could be really, really fun.
And then, of course, it really gets interesting if then the opponent has flying or aircrafts, and I think normal aircrafts, not the choppers, they really gonna get a foothold in this campaign book, and they really gonna be brought back. At least
that's very possible. All right, the final scenario for the Devil's Island then, and this is also another interesting one. You got 4 of the big starter box mats. placed in a square, and then in the middle of it you have one of one of the jungle ones. So this is searching for clues. This is also looks like a very interesting scenario.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's not too much to say about this one. To me it feels kind of straightforward, but it's still interesting. We've seen sort of similar scenarios before, where you have not too much terrain in the outer parts, but you really have to go into the middle because that's the objective. That's what you want to do, and there's a lot of terrain in there, so. It's probably gonna be a bloodbath in the center.
And also, what I think will be brought back in some of these scenarios, which is lovely for me to see then, because you already know I'm a big sucker for the hot dog. And now
that didn't sound well.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I grant you any strange fantasies you get there, but think about coming with 2 or 3 hot dogs into the forest, and because. It's I leave it there.
Yeah. Next up is the Golden Triangle. This is interesting. Just going to Asia, I think, for the first time for the game, and it's getting dense in here. Is the first one. So you kind of see a little bit of that pattern holding up, and for this one.
Yeah, it's difficult to move in this part. The very thick jungles in this part of the world. So all ground vehicles, when they are doing a march move, they have to reduce their march move value by 1. So it's difficult to run or drive flat out speed. And because of the thick jungle, no units with a flying skill can execute a march move at all using that skill. So it's difficult for like heavy rangers and like the new SSU guys with those rockets will not be as good as normal.
I forgot about the twist in that they were coming in here, and that's of course here's is even better because around this area of the Golden Triangle, it is so impossible, so to speak, to drive around with the tanks and jump around with them. So it's good that it's different between the different theaters, that it's not the same everywhere. Of course, but well, please continue. Sorry.
Next up, we can't see anything down there.
Yeah, it's still going on with the thick jungles, and in this case it's difficult to see. Sometimes you have to like fire at random, like firing into the woods and just hope to hit something, which means that every failed infantry or cover saved caused by any weapon mounted on an aircraft or a passenger in an aircraft can be re-rolled, because these aircraft, it's a thick jungle canopy. They can just hope for the best when they're firing.
And they're so good written, that rule, I think, because, or at least to me, when I was reading it for the first time, I immediately it put me back again to the Pacific series, the HBO, the one that followed the Band of Brothers, and 1 or 2 of those episodes, they were really like that. They were chasing the ghost of the Japanese in the jungle, and they were conveying that between themselves, USMCs there in the woods, that it was like hell because you didn't see them, and all of a sudden there's a Japanese in front of them, and they're sitting there shooting like crazy, and not knowing if they hit it because it was just dark and it was raining. And so I think that's, since I wasn't there, and I'm glad I wasn't there in the real warfare, I just think that if Pacific was as accurate as they say it was, then this sounds truly on the money to me.
And finally we got the horror!
Going even further with the theme is that, the soldiers fighting in this part of the world, they know that they will probably never get out of here. If not killed by the enemy, they will probably get killed by some disease or some poison, snakes or whatever. Meaning that they have kind of spiritedly given in already. we're screwed. So no unit will receive under fire or suppression tokens. They will just keep fighting because this is
They
the
don't
last...
care anymore.
Yeah, exactly. This is the last thing they're going to do anyway. So just keep going.
And that doesn't bring me as much into the exact as the former did with Pacific, but of course the Thin Red Line is a movie that immediately pops up, especially the beginning of it and some parts in the middle, of course, as well. If you guys haven't seen that one, that's really one of those you have to mark off. You nod, so hope perhaps everyone has. But Thin Red Line, man.
And if we go to the scenarios, first off, we have, of course, Welcome to the Jungle. And here we go into also some interesting kind of shenanigans with the mats here. Because this uses all the four mats, but not next to each other. They are overlapping here. So you get the first two rows from both of the beach headings, like a river in the middle. But then you overlay the jungle mats for the rest of them. So you have a small river going through some dense jungle here.
But you get the beach, you get the bare strip on the side of them. So when you had the airfield before, when it was just 2 squares, now you get 4 squares. So a lot of more things happens, and when you get into that water, you basically almost stop because you have moved 2 and you reduce 1, that's 3. Even if you have 5 movement, you go just up to the jungle on the other side. So you're in it.
This is a roadblock basically if you want to go through.
And next one is
the next one is really interesting. This is 3 mats, so you have the original the starter desert in the middle with jungle at the sides. This is poppy fields forever. Because you need, of course, some morphine for the troops to make them feel good.
And also we now learned the special ingredients in this sauce that they do for the blood scourge.
Yes.
Yeah, they need that poppy for getting those zombies to wake up properly. And that's just a wonderful little rule, I think, when that is actually... They are high. The zombies are high. That's what I'm laughing at. Of course, it's not the only thing, but it's a good thing. It's a good story arc.
So that's also a kind of interesting lore thing. And then, of course, you get another really great kind of movie reference here: the Heart of Darkness. And that's kind of what you feel like when going into this. Everything just foobar, as they say.
And this scenario uses 4 mats again, all of them on the jungle side, and the forces enter from diagonal opposite corners. So you have like a big area of jungle to wade through, and of course there's a couple of objectives that you need to...
Right in the middle.
So...
Now, the only thing that's missing now is that gunboat going up the river.
Exactly.
And it's... I wish I could do some of the one-liners from Apocalypse Now, or even some of the references from the book, of course, the original one. That's a great book. But, sorry. But it's just so inspiring, this, so I'm...
Definitely. But then we get to... Then we get back to another place that we haven't been to in a long while. That is Europe. We are going to Rome. And here we are getting to the pizzas. We're going to talk about this, of course.
When I read this the first time, this was very interesting to me because, all the other theaters, they are like a bigger area. And this one really zooms in on Rome specifically.
This is
and
one
all the
city.
Crazy things happening there at the moment.
And they are very crazy indeed. So first off, we got the special rules for Rome, and first off, of course, the Holy City.
On this battleground, all buildings are considered to benefit from the field hospital skill. I don't know if you guys remember it, but it's with the if you have one of those Quonset huts, field hospitals, units can use. I don't know. I can't remember if they can use the medical skill exactly, or if it's slightly different, but something to that effect. They can heal wounds on a hero, or
Yeah, a stationary shopper. It's like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, cool. And in this case, all buildings are considered to have this, meaning, infantry units will have it slightly easier actually than
So
Yeah.
you might want
much
to do,
better than Golden Triangle.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
example.
So you might want to go with extra infantry just because of that fact.
Right.
And you also have an ammo surplus.
Oh, you might want to note that with the Holy City rule here, zombies, mindless zombies, and mythos creatures, they can't really benefit, but because
Yeah, because they're not people. Really.
Exactly.
So,
So discriminating.
Yeah, exactly. Zombies
Right,
are people too. Zombies are people too.
ammo surplus.
Yeah, we prove that. Okay, sorry. Please go on.
Ammo
Magnus.
surplus means that you should roll 1 die every time one limited ammo weapon is used, and if you score a block symbol, the limited ammo weapon is not expended. You actually found some more conveniently.
Very interesting.
So, also nice for all of those like Panzerfaust and grenade launchers.
I mean, as an NDAC player, I'm just drooling here, going in with all these African lions and just shooting Panzerfaust as everything.
Those crazy Romans dropping things everywhere, not keeping track of anything.
But then, of course, we get to
the.
the third special rule for this theater, which is Crush for Rome.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much. I have to read kind of the story about it.
The mythos are involved.
Yeah.
The
Basically,
first,
people
the first,
die.
Yeah,
Things
the
die
first two
randomly.
rules were kind of
Very
easy
positive and,
on infantry, and I would say mostly infantry with this ammo surplus. Thinking of Panzerfaust and stuff like that. This one is not so nice to units in general. You have to roll dice, and some people might die.
Yeah.
That's kind of the conclusion
I like
of
the
it.
wording. Not so nice.
Always the diplomat.
Yeah.
And here we come to the missions. And first off, we have pizza for the general. There we go to the pizzas. Yeah, of course. So you run around Rome and collect pizzas.
Yeah, when you're in Rome, you have to eat pizza, right?
Yeah, of course.
When
And there's a
Rome.
lot. I really like this because there's a lot of buildings here.
Yeah.
If you this sounds like it could be a blast just to play. Then you get Rome Deep Dish. And this is also a lot of buildings. Some trees in nice formations. So
Yeah, the map layout here is very similar throughout. But the missions are very, very different.
Yeah.
This one, the second here, is one of those where you have one side starting in the middle and sort of defending, and the other ones can come from any direction. And I like those. I mean, they are very hard to use if you want to play something like that in a tournament setting. We've talked about this before because they are so asymmetric. But when playing casually, I really like this. Like when things are very different for the two sides, when you have to make different decisions.
Yeah, and that's when you get to those really cinematic situations and you feel the pressure from all around. And usually my kind of experience with these kind of scenarios is that both players usually feel the same amount of pressure, even if from the outside it looks like the defender is just attacked from all sides, but the attacker is usually feeling very stressed out too.
Yeah, because you have the time limit and stuff like that. So you have to do things in a certain way, and it's I
think it's very interesting from both ways. Like if you are playing the defender, you might feel that you are attacked from every side. You might feel like almost outnumbered, even if you are actually not outnumbered.
Yeah.
I mean, in some scenarios you are, not in this one. In this one, you have the same amount of points. But I like that. The enemy comes from all directions. You don't know where's the best place to hide, but usually, you get that sort of point mid-battle where it kind of, not always, of course, but it might swing. So the pressure comes more at the attacker because he feels like time is running out. Maybe that push forward didn't really work. And
Yeah, so it's really cool, really interesting. And then finally we got Kitchen Mythos Nightmares. So here we have a comeback of the pizzas. Another of those long and narrow ones. So 4 mats laid out in a row here. So yeah, it's so weird. We're so not used to playing like this.
Yeah, but this is super interesting again to get the opportunity to use maybe longer range weapons. But still you have, I don't know, in this one you have possibly bad weather, so you don't know, you have to roll dice and see, and you still have that, what we talked about in the beginning, the fog of war rules.
Yes,
so,
of course.
Yeah.
But if you want to bring up anything that's negative about this, all the scenarios and this book, and let's try to be a little bit objective, that for those who doesn't have a hobby studio to go to, or doesn't have a big living room they are allowed to turn around, like this is, I can do what I want in my living room. I can do the long big tables that can stand up for a whole day. I guess a few,
I mean, especially for that,
people might have a problem playing this.
For that 9-mat one, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, that's. I don't think anyone of us have a table that could do that. Just off the top of my head.
Not at the moment.
I mean, I guess you can lay it out on the floor and
that
play.
you could do.
That could work. But that one could be a bit difficult. But most of the others, most of them, I think, are on 4 mats, and some of them are a bit tweaked because you put some of the new maps on top of the older ones or stuff like that. But I think you can fit them on, at least if you have a somewhat larger kitchen table, you could fit them. Or maybe you can use like you do, Luda, here. You have some extra space. Yeah, you can put up some
but
extra
you have to
table
realize
space.
that I have now only 3 mats on this one, and this is quite big. We have to have, I mean, to be able to move around it and stuff like that. And you could do 4 mats on this. I know, I've tried it,
but not 4 in a row.
Not 4 in a row. No. Then I need another one of these boards that I have, and that can't at the moment fit on this kitchen table, which is quite big.
Yeah.
So, but my plan is to make that special extension to have beneath it. But I haven't made that yet, and I just feel like I'm a little bit privileged to have that opportunity. Basically, I can't see where in your big apartment, but with the size of your rooms.
At the moment, I have absolutely no way of doing that,
so,
because the table in my hobby room is way too small for that. I don't know, maybe sometime in the future when we will have a bigger dining room, dining table.
What you have to do in your big living room is that you have to have one of those tables that I wanted to have for a while, that you winch up into the roof. So when it's time for gaming, you just go like a big lever.
And the cool thing about that is that you can just, it's time for dinner, just winch it up.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you have the space ready.
Because then you can have like different lamps or something like that makes it look okay from beneath, and you can have some painting on underneath or something like that. But that's what I would recommend you to do. In perhaps
we'll see, maybe
take mats to help you. You should actually.
The advantage to that is that you can make it quite big.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the other idea that I've had is to kind of custom build. If you think kind of like a pool table, but with boards that you can put on top of it, so it turns into a big dining table basically. But you still have that gaming space underneath. And I know there are companies that sell tables ready-made like that. So it's not a unique idea, but I like that concept. So maybe at one time.
But still, like 8-9 mats, it's going to be very difficult to fit.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, that's what this is totally off topic, but I'm doing it anyway. I had that before when I had those two big doors that I put together, and we played 4 by, wasn't it 2 by 2, like 4 mats between on one side and 2 mats on the other, and we were playing 4 people, like a mini tournament in this. So at that time, when I had that, I could actually have played, but still 3 3 wide, that could have been a problem even then.
Yeah.
But I could at least have done like 8 mats or something like that. Well, yeah, sorry. Those were the days.
Yeah.
In my youth. 2 years ago. No.
All right, so now we are returning to another very classic location. We are returning to Sparrowgrad.
Mother Rush.
Yes. The first special rule here is Sparrowgrad Tour Guide.
Yeah, this rule means that units with scout skill become a bit more valuable, interesting,
Even
I would
more.
say.
Yeah.
Exactly, because on the first turn, well, really, they may start on the battlefield on the first turn of the game. They don't have to enter from the side, so they can sort of before the game make a move, and then in the actual first turn of the game they can still use their scout skill, making a march move and then something else. So they can get very deep into the table right from the start.
But do you place them before the start of turn 1, or do they start like they go, okay, this is turn 1, now I take my scout unit and go 1, 2, 3, 4, here's where it's going to start, and then I place it there, and then I go 1, 2, 3, 4 with my move? Because I think you could actually do, if I'm not mistaken here, that you don't have to show where your guys start, but you start 4 squares in if you have a move of 2, 4, and then you move 4 from there without the opponents knowing, or you're just popping up, so to speak. Am I right or am I right?
I'm not sure actually.
Okay.
It says units with the scout skill may start on the first turn of the game directly on the battlefield with their move within their move range from their table's edge. Upon its first activation of the game, a unit with scout may use the full ability of this skill.
Yeah, I think you are right there. You just kind of pop up 4 spaces in.
So nobody knew I already had placed myself in deep cover, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then woohoo, here I am.
Yeah.
Let's go. So that Hans is already 8 squares inside or something like that. It's could be mad.
But then we get to the next one. Death roams the sky. And this is not really a spoiler anymore, because we've seen what happened to Sparrowgrad back in the last expansion, the Hellgate one. There's just a whole bunch of creatures just flying around all over the place.
Yeah.
Migos, heavy Migo activity prevents all aircraft from flying above Sparrowgrad. You can't field any of these units in your army, so you can't even use aircraft if you are playing one of these specific Sparrowgrad missions. It also states that the Mythos is not. It does not apply to the Mythos. I don't know. As far as I know, they don't really have any aircraft yet. But
they don't have any air units that, but they might get at some point. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
and the final one, mercenaries on sale.
Yeah, and this is the sort of the story is basically the same as before. The mercenaries are plentiful in this region. Fighting has been going on here for a long time now, and a lot of the others find it convenient to hire mercenaries, but still they are fairly cheap in this area. So same as the Babylon area, mercenary units are 1 point cheaper here, unless you're playing 100% mercenaries. Then they have the normal costs. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and wasn't it also that it's because there's so much death in Sparrowgrad that no one wants to risk their own troops. Therefore, the generals actually rather take the mercenaries to spare themselves and their people for the suffering.
Yeah.
So I think I read something about that, but it's just...
and it's kind of fitting now that we get to this mission in Sparrowgrad right after we talked about the size of the mats and the units, because here we get to probably the smallest mats, the smallest scenario in the game. This is just 9 by 9 squares. So it's kind of also a return to classic Dust in a way.
Actually, they are overlapping slightly, so they are it's 9 by 11.
9 by 11,
which is a sort of weird measurement, but still, sort of
cityscape. It's a cityscape. It's a kind of little little, what do you say, park in the middle here.
And this is also where the vodka tokens come into play.
Yes, that is what you found.
Yes.
So of course you have to resupply your troops. And next up we got the drinks are on them. We get some more vodka. And this is also another one of those defend the middle scenarios. But here you're not only defending yourself and your men, you're also defending the vodka.
Yeah, the precious cargo.
Yes, of course, of course. And finally, we got the big mission in Sparrow Ground. Bottoms up! Even more vodka going on here. But this time in a much larger environment. And this looks really crazy.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting, I think, because you actually split your troops into, or if you're the ambusher, you split your troop in 3 different parts, and you try to ambush the other party to not getting from one side of the table to the other.
Yeah, so this is one of those very long tables again, or fairly long at least, where one side is, one of the armies are trying to get from one short table edge to the other, which is quite some distance to cover, and the other player will ambush from all over the place, almost like from the long sides.
This also reminds me of a kickoff in American football, actually. So this will also be very interesting to see how you handle Magnus. Do you run the old yards, or are you stopped by the midway point or something?
Yeah. So, like for all of these scenarios, this looks interesting and very, very fun.
Oh, yeah.
And that's basically it for the scenarios, but that doesn't mean that's it for the book. Oh. We also get some new units, some new skills, and some new platoons. And mostly we get the details for the Japanese Navy. Yeah. Most of the units in this book we have already seen. They are released and are available to buy. But there are some that we can get to. But you also get a lot of lore. I mean, you get a lot of details about the history of the IJN and how they came to the point in the story that they are at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And if we just touching on one thing of the lore that I managed to read when I was going through this book, that perhaps even disappoint me. I feel it seems like the New Zealanders are getting off the hook. Perhaps this is a little internal joke, but I thought the New Zealanders were getting it worse than they have been, or perhaps that's the expurgated version, or the XXX version that's coming out on the dark webs.
I don't know. They mentioned the next operation book, Downfall. So
I sincerely hope I read some more profanity about the New Zealanders. So I just.
All right, let's go and talk about the Japanese. I mean, one of the interesting things about this is that you get 2 older heroes that's been released for the Axis, but are now getting Japanese counterparts. So you get Yukiko, the sniper, you get Kaori, the rocket girl, basically. But that's not everything. You also get a unit from the Allies going over to the IJN. And this is something that people might not have seen coming. It's the priest. But
no, it's the traitor.
Yeah, now he's the traitor. David Bonnet, Tokatai agent. Yeah. So if you have the priest, now you can use him for the IJN.
Yeah, and I so like the fluff text there as well, because it basically said that the Allies kind of forgot that he was actually brought up in Japan. It's like, you have a special operative that you send around the world and you forget it. It's just, it reeks military hierarchy from any army. And I don't think this is a pun towards the Allies particularly. That could be any type of... Seriously? Didn't you check that beforehand? You gave him the secret document?
Yeah. But we get some new specific units for the IJN as well. We get the Ninja Execution Squad. We've seen the Infiltration Squad already. This is the Execution Squad. These are 6 points for these girls, and of course they're still ninja girls. And for the weaponry, they also have some katanas, but they are armed with SMGs.
Yeah, just the models in itself, they are so super cool, and I mean, and their hero, that Shadow of the Serpent, Ayako. I mean, the pose and everything, and with these, I'm not gonna say these look better than the Infiltration Squad. That's just, they keep the same high profile. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be super clear here, they actually have assault rifles.
Oh, yeah.
So they have slightly longer range than the submachine guns.
That's true.
But a little bit fewer dice for the most part, depending on what you shoot at, of course. But they do have the scout rule, and they, of course, still have smoke grenades. So
and the improved camouflage.
Like the other ninjas. So, yeah, it's an interesting unit.
So more mid-range than the close range of the Infiltration Squad.
Yeah, I mean, this is, to me, it looks like a little bit more of an sort of all-purpose squad, if you know what I mean. They are limited in what they can do with their weapons. They can't really do too much against like vehicles, except for normal
hand-to-hand close combat.
Yeah, 1-1 attacks. But since they are scout, they will have a better position. And smoke grenades is always nice, and these assault rifles makes it interesting. What I noted about this is that the assault rifle is not an what's it called, stealth weapon.
Yeah, no,
that is true.
It's not.
Which is sort of interesting. I'm not sure if it's worth it to have the longer range and stuff. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what people can do with these guys.
Yeah.
And let's extend the range and the barrel then, and go to the Ninja Sniper Squad.
The Ninja Sniper Squad. This is a really interesting one. This is or the Ninja Sniper team. Really, we've seen a lot of sniper teams in the game so far. All of them they have some differences between them, but the one thing that they all had in common up till now is that there's always been 2 models in the team, and now we have something that breaks the mold, because this sniper team actually has 3 models.
Yeah.
So 2 snipers and 1 spotter. So best of both worlds. We have some kind of variations there with snipers and spotters in different combination. But here you don't really need to choose.
No.
And it's still quite cheap with 6 points for this. So I've seen quite an uptick recently with people using snipers here in our local meta in Sweden, just to get that last shot on a hero, or to take out that specific guy, like with a flamethrower or something. And these girls, I think, could do some really interesting things.
Yeah, I mean, they are more expensive than basically every other sniper unit, maybe except for the
steel guards.
Those are very different. But of course, it's 1 extra model, and they have improved camouflage, and their sniper rifle has the stealth skill, so they can shoot without losing camouflage. So I would say that these are definitely worth their 6 points.
Yeah.
I would say this is how I would like my sniper units to be, basically. Yeah. They have 2 sniper rifles, they have a spotter that they can use to hit on 2 symbols rather than just 1. And yeah, of course, stealth is super nice in combination with the improved camouflage. So.
But it's such an easy fix, Magnus. Just start playing IGN. And your snipers will have 2 sniper rifles and a spotter. So what's the problem? Well, the only thing I have a problem with this one is that perhaps it's just my head, but I think that to use the spotter rule, I think you should be firing at least at the same squad. Because when he's spotting on that one over there and that one over there,
that is true. Technically, you could use
it's just a dice game.
The two snipers to shoot at different targets, and you both benefit from the spotter.
It doesn't sit 100% with me, but it's what does though makes this good is that it gives you more of an incentive to shoot mortar at them. Because when you shoot a normal sniper squad, it's only one or 2 dice. I mean, so here you got 3 dice, and perhaps with the sustain and reroll on that, you're gonna kill something when you shoot on these guys, and then
no matter what you take down, it's going to hurt the efficiency of the squad. So
so then you feel like it's worth it to shoot mortars on these guys.
Yeah.
So
that's an interesting point. And speaking of mortars, next up is this Ninja Observer team. So basically going more over the support units here. 4 points for these girls, and they have the kind of standard observer team rules, and of course the ninja improved camouflage and stealth. So these are going to be interesting. Just moving in, putting a position, and raining down bloody fire from the walkers. That's basically what these are for.
Yeah, and I can see them definitely in the Wengzi Wong platoon.
Yeah.
I think that is going to be very difficult to face for many armies. Meaning, I don't know, we've talked about it, but it's been a while. The Wengzi Wong platoon says that any ninja can hold, if any ninja unit holds an objective, it cannot be contested. You have to remove them. You have to kill the ninjas.
Yeah.
Otherwise they will otherwise they will possibly win the game.
You have to face them out of existence.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I would like to say, because you need to shoot them, take away the cover, because they will be standing in cover, or you have to raid them away.
Yeah,
that's
so you need to play Desert Scorpions. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. I see some. I know ninjas here in Sweden are up on the Desert Scorpions, but I think that the Desert Scorpions on the long run should be able to put up a fight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one of the things with the ninjas or the IJN is that it's such a new block, and most people haven't really adapted to them yet. I know that's definitely the case for me. I'm getting my butt kicked by the ninjas all the time because I just underestimate them, I think. So yeah, that's a thing. You got the Cadet Command Squad. I mean, this is the one that's really interesting. I mean, we talked about this like when we opened it. I just love the look of this. So weird and interesting. I really want to do a cadet-based army, even though it might be not that competitive, but just because of the look and the fluff of it.
Yeah, but I think you can do pretty nice armies, and we'll talk a bit or very soon about the platoons, because they have a few really cool combinations they can put up. So
Definitely.
Yeah, and of course, I mean the cadet kill teams. They can do a lot of stuff. They have their dazzling speed and everything, which can be a pain.
Yeah, so they can be harder to knock out. And then you get the kill squad, you get the railgun team for the cadets, you get the walkers, and there's nothing really new there. But when we get to the really interesting things is, like you said, with the platoons. So first off, we've seen some of these before. The Shadow of Death Ninja platoon. This is the starter box platoon. So this is one that we've seen before. The Shadow of the Serpent Ninja platoon. This is a little bit different. So this is also for the ninjas. Silent but deadly. So this is,
all ninja units again. This is a ninja platoon, of course, with Ayako as the command unit, and then a bunch of ninjas going with her. Plus a Tengu.
Yeah.
Tengu medium walker is needed as well. And the advantage is that all ninja infantry units in or supporting this platoon do not lose their improved camouflage if they make a march move. So this, because that's sort of, or that's one of the problems when you are using camouflage, that you can't really move that fast. You have to like sneak, or you have to just stand still, shoot, and camouflage, go back to camouflage again.
Mm-hmm.
But with the ninjas, because they have stealth on a lot of the weapons, and with this platoon you can make march move. You can move really fast and still be very difficult to see for the opponent.
Yeah,
So,
that could be really annoying to face, I think.
yeah.
Very interesting. Then we get to the cadet combat platoon. So you have the cadet command squad, you get two kill squads, you got the railgun team, and for this one...
In this one, all Naval Academy cadets or units with the IJN cadet title in their name. I'm not sure which one those would be, or maybe it's a unit we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Any of those cadet units in or supporting this platoon that are the target of a successful Get Moving a Bunch of Monkeys special action. They immediately remove any under fire or suppression tokens they might have.
That's really nice. I mean, it's not that powerful, but it's nice.
It's sort of situational, and as we talked about before, in this book there are scenarios where no units in the entire battle receive those tokens anyways. But in some situations, of course, this can be super useful.
Yeah, but it is situational.
Yeah, and I've been up to quite a few battles recently. Talking now, and of course, about Berlin, because those are the battles I've done recently and yesterday with you. But where I've been wanting to move specific units, and I've been reactivating them with the Get Moving a Bunch of Monkeys, and they have been suppressed and not gotten that suppression token to go away, and that really had a big effect on my game. So this is of course, if no one uses that on you, the effect of suppressing you, then okay, well, what do I care? But
yeah. The next one is the cadet support platoon, and this one is the one that I'm really looking forward to trying out. So here you have one of the big walkers for the IJN. Well, you have two of them, at least, yeah. And then you got at least one kill squad. And this is something I really like thematically.
Yeah, this is a very interesting platoon. It's a very different platoon, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It says that all kill squad units in or supporting this platoon, they gain the ability to make makeshift repairs, special actions, so they can repair those walkers that you have.
Only for those specific Japanese walkers,
yes.
though.
Yeah, of course. The ones that are included in the platoon.
Yeah.
And those are the weaker walkers, I would say. It's the mortars and the anti-airs. So it's...
maybe it's the Enenra, Genbu, and Basan is the one you can use here.
So no Tengu for these.
Exactly. So the kill squads can repair those walkers.
Yeah.
But also, all kill squads in or supporting this platoon, they gain expert on all their weapons while they are adjacent to any walker in or supporting this platoon. Also interesting, so they can really make a very, very good defensive stance there.
Yeah, so you basically make up combat teams with one walker and one kill squad that kind of move together and support each other. I mean, I so much like that idea. It's so thematic.
Yeah, I agree. And also it puts them together, so mortars are better against them, or cluster bombs, or something like that. So,
and that's of course the hit you have to take. I mean, you do get to be more predictable in that way. So that's the downside of it, of course. And then you get one that it's really also thematic and fun and weird. The Kamikaze Walker platoon. So here you have any IJN medium walker, which are armor value 4 or 5, and 3 of those, there you go, that's the platoon.
Yeah, and it's I think this is a super cool advantage that you get. I'm not sure how good it actually is in the long run. I suppose it's also a bit situational. But the thing is, if you have this platoon, you can, if you want to make a kamikaze attack, which means that the walker can gain a free attack after it executes a march move. So basically, I mean, you probably want to shoot with it. So it's basically like what's it called, move and fire.
Yeah.
More or less, but you have to choose the march move. So you can really move fast, rush forward, and attack. But the downside is that for one turn, the walker has one less armor. It counts as being armor 3 or 4, depending on where it started. So you really have to kind of calculate: is it worth it? Because it's, you know,
it opens you up.
Yeah.
And especially since then you've done your march move, you get the free attack. But if I
Your reactive attack.
Firing attack.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's very late now in Saturday night almost. I think are we passing midnight yet? Or
No, 10 minutes left.
10 minutes to midnight. So I excuse myself for blurring out my words a little bit. But I mean, then I still get to shoot on your load army value.
Yeah.
So you can easily go just boom.
And I like those that you have this very clear and definite disadvantage, and you just have to make that tactical decision. It's really interesting. Next up, we have the Smoke Dragon platoon. This is a little interesting. You got the Genbu, you got the Ninja Observer team, you got 2 of those, and you got a Ninja Sniper team. So basically, artillery platoon, or
Yeah, and the advantage is also very different and interesting. The advantage is that the Genbu, any Genbu in or supporting this platoon can re-roll the dice when using their artillery weapon to fire smoke.
Yeah, specifically smoke.
Yeah.
And the platoon advantage only work if there's at least one Ninja Observer team still on the battlefield.
So that's, it's interesting. I'm not sure how useful it will be. I mean, of course, if you do want to use smoke tactically, you really want it to succeed. So this helps it to do that. And I think especially, we discussed this earlier also before the pod, with the fog of war rule. Then suddenly smoke becomes much more tactically valuable, because you can hide your advancing units behind the smoke, and the other opponent doesn't know what's advancing towards you. So that could be one of the reasons to use this.
Yeah, and I'm immediately seeing combinations of this platoon here with the former one, with the kamikaze and stuff. So maybe you can fire smoke in good places and then make kamikaze attack, and at least be in a
cover
smoked
situation.
Yeah, exactly.
And create cover for yourself.
So you're probably playing this one, I say, in combination with something else. This is not the base of your army. This is the nice add-on support with extra smoke.
Yeah.
So.
But then these are the IJN platoons, where we get some updated platoons.
Yeah.
And some, this is really interesting. I mean, the first one we've already seen, the Blutkreuz Corps platoon. And the only real difference here is that you are able to use the Laser Grenadier Command Squad as your command unit.
Well, have you always been able to have the intelligent zombies, and they are getting that bonus as well?
That could be also
that is
an
new
update.
to me. If you could do that before, I hadn't realized it. But to me, that really gives me I think an even more value for money with that.
So you get.
I think you could before in the old one. I think you could have at least the Grenadier squad. I'm not sure about the Suicide Squad.
I stand corrected.
As far as I noticed, they've also kind of more explicitly stated exactly which unit benefits from this ability. Before, I remember there was some kind of questions like, can this unit benefit or not? It was something with the lasers, the heavy grenadier, I think, something with the name of those that wasn't kind of
that's true.
something. But now they state super clearly exactly which unit benefits. So that's good.
And the next one, this is the interesting and fun one, the Blutkreuz Zombie Swarm platoon. I mean, we've seen this before in the core rules, and the makeup of it is still the same. You got the Totenmeister, and you get 6 of the zombie squads. But they have changed the platoon advantage here.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting.
Yeah, because the old one didn't really work. The idea behind the old one was kind of fun, but nobody like ever played it, or they just played it once and never again. More
Frank's
or less.
platoon is so much better,
Yeah.
so it's like, why should I?
Exactly.
It was interesting and fun, but the disadvantage of it was just too big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so,
here
they've kind of removed that disadvantage altogether, and now it's much more straightforward. All mindless zombies in this platoon, they gain the charge skill. In addition, they can control objectives.
And that's, I mean, suddenly I want to do this army. I have been interested in the zombies before, but this just clinches it. I mean, these. I'm not saying these are going to be competitive, but they might be. They actually might be, and at least it's going to be very, very fun.
Yeah.
It allows you to do something completely new with these, to be honest, quite old units.
Definitely, because beforehand you always had to see, how can I have something else beside the zombies surviving so I can claim the objective. But now you don't have to think about it anymore. You can just go with the things you need and not... because I think that zombies need air cover and or perhaps airplanes or something like that. So and those can't, of course, take objectives as well. So you're really down.
Yeah, and I mean,
the
zombies obviously need to get into close combat, and since they all gain charge just like that, and you don't have to worry like you did in the old version of this platoon, they could run off in completely wrong way and attack your own units. That is all gone with this one. So now you can just charge your swarm towards the enemy. And if they happen to land on an objective, that's fine too.
That's great.
Much more the better. Or something
Definitely. And that's basically it for the big new things. You get also a list of the new skills, the new skills in this, and you also get some clarifications that previously was only available in the FAQ for some skills that have been updated or changed. So it's good to have that in a printed version as well. But I mean, this book, I mean, this is something special.
Definitely. We were super excited after the last one, but it's still just getting better. Now you really long for that next book. What can they do then? What's the next step for the studio to take?
And I think what's interesting is that I think for the last two books we've been talking a lot about the units, and we're talking about the story. But here I think the main focus has been the scenarios. I mean, those are so special. Those are just inventive, and it seems like everything has taken a little bit step up compared to the older ones. But the scenarios is the big selling point for this book. If you're not interested in the stories, fine. That's if you're not interested in the new platoons or the units. I mean, you're going to get those anyway. But if you're going to buy this book for any reason at all, I think it's for the scenarios and for the paper mats that goes along with them.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to not play on desert mats for a while now. Play on something completely different. I mean, I like them. The starter box mats, they are super, but still, it's very nice to have the variation.
Yeah, well, you've done something for a very long time, but you really want to kick it up. And I also have to say, of course, for the next book then, what will happen? We don't know. It's just, I just had to put it out there, It's...
So maybe this is the last big push for the old world in a way. But what a way to go out if that is the case.
Yeah, I would like to put it out there right here now and promise you I don't know jack about anything. So, but I just had a thought. I think it was when I was down in Berlin when I was sleeping in Johannes' apartment. This, for some reason, it was perhaps his cat was rubbing up on my skull or something like that. But I would like, I would like the Bloodkreuz to migrate from Earth to the moon. And I would like to see a special moons.
The dark side of the moon.
Yeah, well, because I'm actually reading this. I've started reading it again. I just started it and then put it down for some reason when I bought it a few years ago. This handbook for aliens coming to destroy the Earth, and because apparently no one has succeeded, and it's so good. I'm going to go into it next episode, of course, instead. So just leave it out there. But Dark Side of the Moon is, of course, very interesting place to be at, and the advantage, disadvantage about the back. But let's do something about that book in our next big real episode, so to speak.
All right. So, I think that's basically it for this episode. I mean, this is a fantastic release for the game. And it's going to be a ton of fun to play through these scenarios. And I'm very much looking forward to it. So with that, I would like to thank everyone out there for sticking with us. And I hope you're going to have as much fun as we have. So big thank you from me, Johannes.
And from Magnus.
And Kabla from Luda.
And we will see you on the battlefield. Thank you for listening to Dust War Journals. You can find us at dustwarjournals.com or on social media at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dust War Journals. And you can find our Patreon page at patreon.com/dustwarjournals. All music used in this podcast is made by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com.